I am super uncomfortable about the topic of this week's training video. It's one of those things like if you were asked, if someone just laid down a board on the ground and told you they'd give you $100 to walk across the board from one end to another, you would totally do it. You wouldn't even think twice about it. But if they moved that board up 10 stories and told you, I'll give you $100 to walk across that board, you wouldn't do it. No, it's too dangerous. And the problem is, the difference is the consequences of failure, right? If you step off the board or misbalance while it's on the ground, there's no big deal, no consequence whatsoever to it. 10 stories up, you're a dead person, right? That's what this week's training video is like, because I want to talk about cases that you work as a private investigator, and I'm going to throw in process server as well, that really make a difference, like a lifelong difference, maybe a generational difference. Hi, this is Larry K. with ShadowAnyone.com. I'm the creator of the Investigator's Ultimate Guide series, including the Investigator's Ultimate Guide to Surveillance, which we're going to talk about, and the Investigator's Ultimate Guide to Process Serving. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So the thing here about the cases that we work, there are some that have minor influence, minor differences in a sense. Maybe a medium level one. Think about this, like a workers' compensation fraud case where a person is defrauding a company or the state or both to collect bogus benefits. If you're the one who catches this person, the surveillance video of this person that is later used in court to deny the claim or to cancel the claim, you have affected that person's life. Honestly, not forever, right? They're going to hustle some money up somewhere else. They're going to figure something else out, right? I mean, you can play the game where well, maybe now that they got to get a job, they won't be buying so much dope and they'll make that step towards making their life better. You could make that argument. I'm not really into playing that kind of what-if game with things. The fact of the matter is the cheat is going to lose his or her compensation, and then they're going to figure out something else and bring enough money in to scrape by in their comfortable little world like they did before, right? So there are cases like that that just don't make a long-term difference, really. Sometimes we work cases that do. The two primary ones are divorce cases and child custody cases, and much more so the child custody cases. Those are things that affect people for the rest of their lives. Imagine, it doesn't take any imagination, really. Think about people who talk about scars and problems from their childhood that they carry for decades or maybe their entire life. You, as a private investigator, when you work a child custody case, when you can do your job and collect evidence that moves a child from a dangerous or abusive or hostile environment into the custody of the better parent, and honestly, sometimes, right, is the better parent, not a great parent, but a better parent, but hopefully into the hands of the parent that's going to take better care of that kid, that makes a lifetime difference to that child. And whatever gets passed on to the next generation, that is an outcome of the case that you worked, right? If you can get that child out of an abusive home and into a more caring home, that affects not just that child, but that child's children down the road. You are making a generational change. Why do I say that this is one of those things that's a little awkward or uncomfortable to me? It's because you're making, it's a big deal. You got to get it right. You got to do your job right. You can't skew things to the parent that you think is better. You collect the evidence, unbiased, collect the truth and bring it forward to your client, who will present it to a judge who will make a decision, hopefully the right decision for that child. But child custody cases are one of those ones that if you don't have the skill sets, if you don't know what you're doing, be reluctant to accept that. Now, any case, of course, right? If you don't know what you're doing and it's a cheating heart and the girlfriend wants to know if her boyfriend is cheating and you mess up the surveillance, there are consequences to that. That's rough. That's hard. There are maybe even safety issues, but it's not the end of the world. They were probably going to break up anyways and life will move on. Child custody cases, you better know what you're doing. I do have the Investigator's Ultimate Guide to Surveillance. Please, if you need surveillance skills to do your job right, please get that training. It's over at shadowanyone.com. If you don't need that skill set, don't buy the course just to have it. Don't collect it just for nothing. It's not going to help you. But if you need that skill set, get the training. Process servers. This is also, I will tell you, a real life case that I handled. And it's not too far from what can come up regularly. Now, if you're a process server, you know the common thing is you're delivering papers to people, and 9 out of 10 or 19 out of 20 people are going to accept them more or less like a gentleman. It's not a big deal. You're delivering papers, and that is some nice money to be making, especially at $65 a serve, which is probably about nowadays here late into the 20th century, 21st century. That's about what you should be charging. But you're going to have problem people and problem children sometimes that you have to deliver. I don't mean problem children, but I mean people who are going to give you a hassle. And of course, you're going to charge more for those types of things, as I explain in the Investigator's Ultimate Guide to Process Serving. But here's a real life case that I had as serving process. My client, I was working for the attorney, had his client was a woman in an abusive relationship. Here was the plan for her to get out of that abusive relationship and get a divorce. She was going to pack up all of her belongings and the kids, put them in the car, and take them to work with her. My job was to serve the husband. He had no idea this was coming. Serve him the divorce papers so that she could be away free and clear. If I failed, if I was unable to serve this guy, she would pack the kids and her belongings, come home from work, unpack everything like life was just fine, everything's normal. And I would try, and she'd spend another night with this monster, and I would try again the next day. And we would do this repeatedly until I could get this guy served. That's life-changing. That's rough. And that's a heavy burden to carry, to know you're sending a woman and children back into the house with a monster until you can do your job. You better know how to serve process in those tough circumstances in order to make this happen. Again, if you need training on this, the Investigator's Ultimate Guide to Process Serving. I got techniques in there that are remarkable and effective, but I've lived it. I've been there. I've done that. The results that I'm promising you in my courses, I've achieved in my life. Be careful for courses or anything where people are promising you results that they have not gotten in their own life. In this particular case, I pulled out my skill sets and I served this guy right away, day one. The woman and her children never had to go back home, never had to spend another night with that guy. That's the level you should be playing at. I say playing, but when you're a security or an investigative specialist, when you're a process server, private investigator, even my brothers and sisters in security, the bar is higher than what people think. You're responsible for people's safety and health and well-being. So take your profession seriously. Do the work you're paid to do. Don't slough off and don't just try to slip by with the bare minimum. Know what you're doing. And sometimes the cases you work, the things you do, will make a difference for the rest of a person's life and beyond. If you have any thoughts about this, please feel free to add them to the conversation. We can all learn from each other. In the meantime, this is Larry K. with shadowanyone.com. Remember, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.